If you've ever wondered what Adolf Hitler, Kool-Aid, and Google reviews have to do with each other, well, this is the episode for you, because we're talking about social proof and why it's an essential part of the human psyche and how you can pivot it to use in your favor or protect yourself against people using this against you. So let's get into it. Welcome to the NZ Guide to Financial Freedom podcast. It's run by the co-founders of a free online learning platform called moneyskills.co.nz, and it has the sole mission of providing every New Zealander the opportunity to live a more fulfilling life. So let's get into it. Have you ever wondered why people just sort of get on the bandwagon? Why, they do bad things? Why, in World War I, in Nazi Germany, there was 2/3 of the population that were informants on basically how to get Jews killed. How does that happen? Why do humans think that? Why is groupthink actually a danger to our society instead of something that's beneficial? And it's the concept of social proof. And humans, they have a tendency to trust other humans. It cuts corners. It's more effective. A good example of this is the bystander bias, where if there's a crisis or an emergency, let's say there's a fire alarm and you can't see smoke and there's not quite an indicator that things are dangerous, but the fire alarm's gone off and you're like, something doesn't seem right here, and you start going downstairs, but you look around, you look at people, you're like, why is no one reacting? Okay, must be a drill. So they don't react. But actually, it's a serious thing and there is a fire, and you're actually just using social proof and others' emotions to decide for yourself on what's actually happening. You're cutting corners. Where this becomes important, let's say you're in a situation where you're in danger of being kidnapped, or someone's, forcing themselves on you, and people aren't coming to help, or they're being very violent. And so what's happening, there was an example of a lady, she ran 20 blocks screaming, and someone stabbed her like 30 times, which is really sad. Or a homeless person that just left for days and no one did anything. They just kept walking past them on the main road. And it's the bystander effect, where people use the social proof or how others are reacting as an indicator on how they should react, and then they do nothing. Now, if you're in a dangerous situation where you need help from someone else, or someone's passed out and you need to get them involved, you pick out the individual. Hey, you in the blue shirt, can you come and help? This is an emergency. This person's having a heart attack. Or, hey, I'm in danger. Please help me. If you don't choose the individual, then they mold into the crowd. If you select the individuals, then they have a certain level of accountability, and they have to actually go against social proof and the learned conditioning that they've developed to abandon you and not help. So if you're in that situation, single the person out, make it clear that it's an emergency, and then they're more likely to come to your aid. That was a bit of a dark way to start. There's also, I've seen it used quite effectively. I saw this company is called Real Social Dynamics, and they'll teach you how to connect with women. And they're like, they'll teach these young men, and they'll be like, hey, yo, this is how you connect, and this is how you develop, and try this concept of merging sets. So you imagine a guy in a club. What he does is he sees this group and he says, hey, how you guys going? And they seem very familiar from an outside perspective. And they're like, oh, wow. If you're looking at this guy, you're like, wow, he's social. Wow, I must know them. That's cool. And then that guy introduces a group to a new group as though he knows both of them. Like, hey, Barry, have you met Sally? Oh, Sally, this is Sam. And Barry, this is Kelly. And then he interacts with them and brings them all together. And then you see the other guy, the guy with the balding head, and he's like slicked across, the thick glasses, and he's just creepily scratching his belt and just looking over at people and glaring at them. And he's standing by himself, like out in the open. You're like, whoa, something's off with that guy. But then you see the other guy, and he's all social, and you're like, wow, something about this guy, like he must be friendly. Oh, yeah, well, they don't think he's crazy. Oh, okay, I'll go talk to him. Oh, he's so cool. Like, he's helping me connect because, I'm got a crippling loneliness. That's why I'm out in the clubs, just trying to repress the emotions internally so I can somehow deflect from the meaningless existence of my life. Sorry, guys, that drink. Yeah, I'm sure you're just doing it for fun. They become the Cinderella of the ball, and purely by association, they think he's the bee's knees. And you might be thinking, right, come on, that's a bit of bullshit. Well, Google reviews. Do you ever just look at a review? Like, you search your name, it's got Google reviews, got a whole lot of reviews, and you're like, oh, fuck it, they sound like a better choice, I'll pick them. Or a Yelp review when you go to a restaurant, or when you're walking past a restaurant and it's empty. No one's there. And, you're like, and then you have another restaurant, same name, same everything, but it's just bustling. But there is some room. Like, there's room for you to join. You're just going to go there. You're just going to assume it's better. And that's the idea of social proof. There's a dark example as well, where it's the Jones theory or Jonestown, where a cult, they isolated themselves. So they separated them from humanity, the traditional ways, and they created this new community, and it created this group think. And there was this very charismatic leader that was worried that they were going to get caught, and he would basically incrementally expose people to a stimulus. He would get them to drink Kool-Aid to test their loyalty to God and say it was poisoned. And then progressively, at the end, 900 people committed suicide through drinking the Kool-Aid. That's why they say don't drink the Kool-Aid. That's where that saying comes from. It's pretty dark. But there was an incremental exposure where, they were rewarded for building that trust. And the second thing, there was the social perception and the social pressure where they feel like they're letting the others down. Or, you might see it in the military where they fight more for their comrade and to honor the comrade or to support them. And it's less about the cause as it is about the person next to them. And I'm sure, there's patriotic, motivated people, but when people are shooting at you, your life's compromised, and you've got someone that you've had a shared experience of emotional turmoil and they've got your back, you don't want to let them down. And that's this idea of social proof. So if you were to go on a website, any successful website has some indicator. The landing page, that's when they give a call to action where they want you to do something, will have some level of social proof. Whether that's credible institutes, so, Stuff NZ or, NZ Herald or, Time Magazine or, TV1 and TV3, you're like, as featured on these things. You could argue whether they're credible or not these days, but, let's not get into that. Don't want to get sued. I was taught never start a fight with someone that prints ink by the bucket loads. You're not going to win. Maybe our brand gets that big. We have some leverage, but probably not. So yeah, don't attack me, guys, but that's social proof. So they use that. Other thing they might use is testimonies, reviews, so they display that prominently. So then you use that as an indicator on whether something is good or bad. Now, where it becomes very dangerous and why society can be concerning in moments like these is when you lose the sense of the individual to groupthink. So our desire to belong and be a part of something represses our individual need to express how we really feel. So what happens is you collect everyone as an identity. You're like, you're this group, you're this kind of way, you're white, privileged, cis male, that's me, that's my group identity. That's going to stir some shit, isn't it? Maybe I should stop stirring, okay? But the idea is you have this group identity that you're getting labeled and you want to be a part of it, but you're not truly expressing the individuality of how you're feeling, the turmoil, and you're sort of making assumptions that the other people don't feel it that way. So you repress it more and more and more. And either you snap and then fight the system, which is very hard. We're social animals. We're geared towards fitting into the system. But where that happens is like, okay, I've got this inner turmoil. Where can I channel? Who can I hate? Where can I get this emotion out while still maintaining the status quo? And then what happens is you have a very powerful individual like Hitler, very charismatic, very strong individual that directed your hate at something else, and it had a righteous cause of sorts, like, let's make Germany this amazing place, rebuild it after the Treaty of Versailles. Let's get to how things were, and that pain that you have internally, the struggle that you're feeling, it's because of them. Those people over there are the reason that you have all this fucking suffering. It's not because you're confining to the group identity. It's because you're fucking these people, them. And then they dehumanize them. So they call them a number. They dissociate them. The Jews were just a number when you take them to the concentration camp. You talk about the segregation. They were just colored people in the 60s. Just, they're different. They're unevolved. They're this, they're that. And it's a way to dissociate the emotions and not treat them as an individual. You see the CEOs of large companies where they lose touch of what it's like at the bottom line, like for the people in the trenches, and they themselves become worried about their own concerns and get more and more dissociated for how they're feeling. Same thing with generals and military battles is, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be there in World War I trying to get up the hill in Gallipoli. They just keep forcing it down, and they thought it was these people over there were being insubordinate and they weren't executing, and it wasn't their idea. And humans do that so much. You do that in your life. Just audit your life and think, the people that I find most disgusting, why am I reacting more intensely with them than anyone else in my life right now? Someone calls your name, you don't care. Someone says you're a pineapple, you freak the fuck out. You're like, oh my God, I'm not a pineapple. You're a cunt. But, so we project. We try to kill in the world what we hate in ourselves. And you just got to be really mindful in moments where you have a group identity, where people's individual suffering and concerns and fears and doubts feel ostracized and isolated from others, but they also want to be a part of the group. So they stuff it down until the moment where that anger starts building up. And you see it in suicide bombers, you see it in military people, you see it in politicians, you see it in your friends, you see it everywhere, where they have a reason for why they hate an individual. They have a reason. It's a righteous cause. Whether it's a suicide bomber or the military person, they're both fighting for righteous reasons in their eyes. A good example of this would be the gulags. The gulags was the most horrible labor camps you can imagine. There was cannibalism. There was a story, it's really dark, where this guy, he was secretly hiding this girl to protect them from the other prisoners. And eventually he went away and he trusted his friend to look after this young lady. And then he came back and she was tied to a post and her breasts had been cut off and her thighs, but she was still alive. And he tried to take her down and save her, and she died from her wounds. And it was really horrible. And, it was the status quo. They were starving. That was the only way they could get by. And the people in there that were vilified were just the average people. The people that were committing the heinous acts in Germany, Nazi Germany, just the average people. If you ever talk to a murderer or a pedophile or a rapist, there's some unique quirks that make them different, but, they very much seem normal. You try and look for reasons to hate them, but, they're human. They're a person. Usually the level of suffering they inflict on others is the level of trauma or challenges that they've had internally, and they project that on. And they find an internal foe and use that to justify the action. And you find that with good people. So with the gulags, the nation was starving, huge famine, and you had these farmers, and it was socialism, and they're like, okay, everyone, we're all equal. But these farmers, the starving farmers, are eating your crops. They're being selfish. They're being greedy. They're the reasons that you are starving. They're the reasons for your suffering. They need to go to the gulag. So they're sending them to the gulag. And all it was a farmer and their family starving. And they were vilified because people weren't reflecting on the groupthink. They weren't reflecting on who the actual enemy was, which was an internal foe. Was the repressed emotions, was the feeling of exclusion and isolation, but using unity as a means to ignore that sensation. And all it took was very strong individuals to direct their hate to someone else. So I just ask you in times like these to reflect on how much is my own emotions and my own unresolved issues, and how much is actually the person and their attributes. 9 times out of 10, you're going to find, hey, this is something within me. Sure, they might be doing bad things, but the strong emotions that I have are my responsibility. They're caused by things that have happened in my past, and I'm reacting to the idea of this person as opposed to who they really are. And if you can create that conversation where you allow individuals to express their own sovereignty and to show their true selves and they feel accepted, you don't have that vilified hate and disgust of some minority or some group that you can vilify for. And more often than not, they're not the reason for the suffering, it's you. So that's the idea of social proof. And that's why I'm asking for a review right now after that dark fucking end. If I get reviews, basically, other people are going to look at this podcast. They never listen to it. They're going to assume it's good because you gave a good review. So that's going to help us grow. More people are going to learn about it, and you're going to be a part of it. I'm going to read it out. You're going to get that social accolade. So that's why I actually asked about the review at the end. I don't actually give a fuck. The reason I care is because more people are going to see it. It's going to grow. We're going to make more of an impact. It's going to be better for New Zealand. Or it might provide a unique insight in how I'm letting you guys down or how I can improve this. So either way, it's a win. Thank you. And I just ask in these moments, reflect on how much is an internal struggle and how much is being projected. And let's find a sense of community, empathy, irrespective of how righteous you think your cause is. So thank you.